Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So, I was watching this movie. I mean, I'll be honest, most of this video will probably be me kind of shitting on it and also saying why I like the original better. But I wanted to mostly talk about this one for two reasons. The first is I feel like there was like some concepts that could have been cool. The movie just kind of, or like interesting, the movie kind of just flopped with, like, with the backstory stuff and with the setting especially. But also it kind of made me like the original more. Okay, because when I watched the original, I mean, I didn't really know anything about it, but I thought like it was gonna be like a slasher movie or something, and I didn't know how to feel about it, where it was a lot of like the main character Helen like investigating this stuff about the Candyman, and then it took forever for the Candyman to actually show up, and then it's kind of started getting good and whatever. And just with the fact that it was like scary in like a visual sense but also not scary, and how I don't know, I thought he was going to be more of like a serial killer type, but instead he was more of like kind of alluring but still dangerous, kind of seductive and stuff. And I didn't know how I felt about any of that when I originally talked about the movie. I watched it like earlier today too. And then I just finished Candyman 2. And then as I was watching this one, I was thinking not only of like, oh, I like the original better, but I feel like I kind of understood it more, because this one is a slasher and it's really bad. So it made me realize, like, oh, the original not being a slasher and being like its own thing and being more of it's kind of ironic actually, where like the Helen is like investigating about the myths and kind of learning about the Candyman as she's like going along and stuff. But then he still feels very mysterious and stuff. But then in this one, it's like the main character, her name's Annie, doesn't really like learn a ton about him, but it's also the one where we get his lore, and she sort of learns it at the end, and it just feels worse. I don't know. I think what bothers me is like I'm usually fine with giving characters like more backstory and stuff, because you get like a bit of it in the first one of like how he was like the son of this slave, and he fell in love with this white woman. You find a little bit more about her in this one too. Her name is Carolyn. I think they also changed her appearance too, which I find kind of weird. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then she ended up having a baby, and the rest of the people find out, and they kill the Candyman for it, and they cut off his hand, they release the bees on him. You actually get to see that in this movie, and it's like a really dark scene. It's one of the scenes I one of the only ones in this movie I thought they did kind of well. But I feel like with just that like bit of info in the first one was fine, because it has this thing of like, oh, Helen looked like his lover, and that's why she's sort of being like targeted and stuff. But then here it's sort of weird where you actually get to see what Carolyn looks like, and she looks more like Annie in this, so it still sort of has that vibe, but I feel like that wasn't really needed, especially because of like some of the lines he says to Annie are also still like a little romantic, but it feels weird now because there's the whole thing, like the actual reason she's being targeted, her and her family, and she's of course like the only survivor out of everyone, is that their family is like distant relatives to the Candyman and stuff, but her mother was like her mom's like the actual villain basically, who's like denying that they were related and stuff, and trying to hide the evidence because the Candyman's daughter is like Annie's mother's grandmother or something. I mean, there are like hints early on at the beginning of like, oh, okay, it's like they're being they're like connected, or not that they're like connected, but I thought it was gonna be instead actually that like they were related, like to Carolyn's side, the family or whatever, like the slave owner people, but instead it was that they're the Candyman's daughter's like relatives and stuff, which I thought was more interesting. And it makes some of the lines also make more sense too, because the entire movie he's telling Annie of like, I need to take you on this like journey or whatever, and I was confused what the heck he was talking about, but I think it was just because he ends up like doing this kind of psychic vision thing or whatever when he meets Annie for the final time, where she like touches his hand and she gets the flashback at the same time we're getting the flashback about his past. Okay, I'm gonna go off of my notes now. I think some of the things that bothered me was I didn't really like Annie as a character. I didn't really like any of the characters, if I'm not no, there's like two characters I actually kind of like. The Candyman, of course. That's the interesting thing. I didn't really care for I felt the acting, I'll say it, I thought the acting was kind of bad in this movie. It was just kind of bad. I don't know another way to put it. Tony Todd as the Candyman, on the other hand, he was doing just fine though. Like he felt like the only one that was actually like trying, and his character did feel kind of the same, like how he was in the original, except kind of a bit like less seductive and mysterious. It's kind of a bummer because like with the first one, like as an example, in both movies it takes like 40 minutes for him to finally show up, and in the first one it feels more earned and stuff because like Helen, we haven't seen anything of the Candyman yet, just like the bodies he's been leaving behind, and Helen has been like investigating him and stuff. So then you get that first meeting with him in the car park or whatever, where he's like all the way on the other side of it and he's walking towards her, and you get like those shots of him before you like fully see his face and everything, and it's like kind of mysterious of like, there he is, I guess he turned out to be real or whatever, and it's like a bit scary. And then here you get him in like the first 5 minutes. He still doesn't meet the main character until like 40 minutes in, but it feels kind of more weird. Actually, I'll talk to that in a bit, where he just like shows up. Actually, no, I'll talk about that now. He shows up in Annie's house, because her thing is that the Candyman is killing people. Sorry, I'm like trying to decide in my brain which one I want to talk about first. Okay, because he shows up in like the first 5 minutes of the movie and he kills this guy who like doesn't believe in him or whatever, and he does the thing of like saying his name in the mirror, because that's like supposed to be the way he gets summoned, but then there's other people in this that just like die and they don't even say his name 5 times in a mirror or anything reflective. Actually, it's not even stuff with mirrors, it's like anything that's reflective. Like there's a book that's written on the Candyman in the movie that has a reflective, like the cover of it is reflective, and apparently that counts. Where people throughout this movie keep saying his name, either mostly because they're like non-believers or for like other reasons, and then he shows up immediately and he kills them, and that's it. Like there's some people where he shows, they don't even set up like a scare or anything, he's just there behind them and he kills them. Like he's just reduced to like a slasher, and you actually see him like kill people on screen, and it's so less cool compared to like with the original, where you don't really see, I think you see him kill like 1 or 2 people on screen, but for the most part, and it just hits so much harder of like Helen is finding these bodies that are torn open and bleeding and whatever, and just seeing like the aftermath of it and not the actual kill makes it more like scary and mysterious and stuff. And he really only shows up just to kind of like fuck around with Helen of like trying to get her to believe and whatever. And then here, I mean, he's still showing up and kind of scaring Annie throughout the whole thing, but he's also going around and just like killing these people. I feel like it's happening just so we can have more murder and just kind of filling in the runtime, if anything. It just kind of sucks. Okay, let me see. I feel like the beginning is also really slow, where it's mostly just Annie doing things. You're kind of just thrown into her story, actually, where she's like this teacher. The kids believe in the Candyman, and she says his name 5 times and nothing happens. I don't know why that keeps happening with our protagonists in these movies, where it's like everyone else says the name and then they die, and then with the main character it's always like they say his name, nothing really happens. They have like a first meeting with him, he doesn't kill them, and they keep meeting him and he doesn't actually like kill them or anything, and he has like plenty of opportunities to and stuff. And it's like, I think because in these, at least with these two, I'm not watching the other sequels. I've heard the third one's bad, and I don't really care about the 2021 one, where he has like some kind of connection with them from like the past. So I think that's probably the reason they're being like I mean, he does later on tell both of them, like Helen and Annie, of like, oh, we're gonna be together in death or whatever, and it's like a double, what is it, like a double suicide or whatever, and it is just to kind of like keep the plot going or whatever. But then in this one, I feel like it feels worse, where like everyone in her family, like but Annie, is being killed, and they're like all related to the Candyman though, not just Annie. So but yeah, at the beginning of the movie as well, Annie has this brother. I liked with the letterbox comments, which I was like kind of scrolling through earlier, people kept saying her brother had a very punchable face. I thought that was funny. No one in her family is really that important now. No, the mom does turn out to be important, and the dad is dead, but he's kind of the one that starts the whole thing. Yeah, her brother's just not really that important in the story. It's that he is being convicted of murder. The police think that he killed his dad, but the son knows, like, oh, it's because of the Candyman, but he refuses to tell his sister or the mom because he doesn't want them, like, involved or whatever. So it is kind of set up at first of like, oh, Annie's gonna find out the truth and prove her brother's innocence, which I thought would be interesting, but I feel like she doesn't really learn anything throughout the movie. She's not really like investigating. It only happens like towards the end, like in the second half of the movie. For the most part, she's just living her life, not believing in the Candyman. She only really kind of gets involved after she meets him, and even then he's just kind of like stalking her throughout the movie, and she's not really like doing anything. Let me see. And the thing is that everyone because this takes place in New Orleans, I do like the idea, and that's one of the things I thought was a bummer. I think it's a cool setting in general. It is also kind of weird though, actually, because like with the first movie, they don't mention that the Candyman's like from there at all, and I did like the urban setting in the original. But here it's also kind of cool, like everyone including Annie, like knows about the Candyman or has heard of him and stuff. And a lot of people, are like rightfully afraid of him, but there is still like some non-believers and things. Sorry, my notes are actually like all over the place, so I'm desperately trying to like figure out where to start from. But yeah, I thought that was but yeah, it's like a cool setting. I do miss like the kind of gothic vibes of the first movie. I think it had to do with like the mysteriousness of the Candyman and like the design even of his lair and stuff. Here he's just kind of like popping up out of nowhere to all these people. because it takes place during Mardi Gras as well, so you get some scenes of like people out in the streets dressed up, and Annie's there kind of trying to navigate through them, and that's at least like sort of interesting. Nothing's really done with it, but there is this announcer character. He's like the only other character I liked. You get to see him in person like one time. He doesn't really have like plot relevance, but I find him interesting, where he like every day is announcing different things, but he has these messages. They're not like supposed to be related to Candyman specifically, but they're about like people taking the time to like enjoy life, or messages of like doom almost, but they still kind of work with what's going on in the story. And he did have some like kind of funny and fun lines, so I liked him as a character. I'm trying to find a specific note. Hold on. There's a lot of fake out jump scares in this, where it's set up of like, oh, it's possibly the Candyman, and then it's not. Like literally at the beginning there's this guy that gets killed in the bathroom who had said the name 5 times, and you think that there's someone in the bathroom who's going to kill him, and it's just some guy that's using the bathroom, and then the Candyman like actually shows up. But it would have been kind of funny in a sense if it was the Candyman, because you see this guy, you see like a bathroom stall, and the person just rises up. And I was thinking in my head, I mean, I didn't know if it was the Candyman or not. Turns out not to be, but like if he just popped in through like a toilet or whatever, it would have been kind of not actually funny though, now that I think about it. But instead there's like this one shot that I thought was pretty good of like this this one bit of like this revolving door. Yeah, I guess not revolving door. That's the one in hotels that like spins in a circle. But when it's like it keeps moving. I don't remember what that's called. And then it opens and it closes and it opens again. The Candyman's just there and it closes and he's gone or whatever. It makes him kind of like ghost-like in a sense. That was a cool entrance, because that's the thing that's still confusing to me with this guy. Like in the first movie, he, you know, it's not like he's like literally teleporting. He doesn't like suddenly appear on the screen. It's more of like the camera moves and he's there, and he wasn't there earlier, but he's there now, but it feels like natural and stuff. But then in this one, all of his entrances to seeing people, for the most part, not all of them, are like he comes in through like a doorway or whatever. Like he just enters the room and it makes you think like, okay, he entered from somewhere, but then he literally freaking teleports on screen where he's just suddenly like there or not there, and it's like, I get he's magic or whatever, but it feels a little silly that it's actually happening the way they do that. Philip Glass returns to the music. That is like one of the only saving graces of this movie, is the soundtrack is like just as good as the original, but it was kind of weird where some of the original's music is still in this. I think also what was basically like Helen's like musical theme, but she isn't in this movie. Oh, that does still turn out to be canon though. This is like a sequel, where literally the beginning of the movie they're talking about Candyman and they describe about like, oh, but in 1991 Helen blah 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 or something. Except I do feel bad for Helen, where she is mistaken for the Candyman. Like people just assume she took the name and she killed those people, and I feel bad for her because like that's not true, and she died saving that baby and stuff. I mean, she does come back as a ghost and like kills her ex-husband or whatever, which I feel like that could have been a cool sequel, even if it wasn't actually related to Candyman, of like this ghost going around like killing people in the same way or whatever. But yeah, but the music's good. I gotta listen to both soundtracks. It just feels weird because like with the beginning, I mean with the original movie, I feel like the soundtrack made sense, where you know, it's like mysterious it's like a mystery, if anything. It's like a thriller mystery, and I liked that. So I feel like the piano music sort of fit, and it just feels kind of gloomy. I mentioned kind of like gothic in a sense. But with this one, it's like none of that is a thing here, but you still have the same type of piano music. And I feel like it's doing the heavy lifting in terms of the emotional department, but there's like no emotion in this movie until you get to like the flashback backstory scenes, so it feels like it's kind of wasted on this movie. At least it gives me more Philip Glass to listen to anyway. But yeah, there is hints about stuff with the Candyman's backstory. I mean, you do see flashes of it, these like little glimpses throughout the movie, but they happen too fast of like things they almost set it up as if it's like things Annie's remembering, but you know, she doesn't really know about any of it. But they do mention some lines of like that her old house used to have like slave quarters, and there's this line about her dad being like mysteriously drawn to that house to purchase it or whatever. And I wrote in my notes when that was talked about, I'm like, oh, I bet he like died in that area or something. But a lot of the beginning is just like Annie living her life with her husband. Her husband isn't even like they have a lot of side characters like that don't do anything. Like he's there, I'm pretty sure, just to get killed, and that's it. Cause she is in the bathroom and then he finally shows up, and he's just, it is such a small room too, he's just there or whatever, and he's talking to her. She didn't even like summon him at that point. And then there's this one shot where he's behind her in front of a mirror, and it not only made me think, because it's been on my brain a lot, you're gonna hear me yap about that series so much, but it reminded me of like Phantom of the Opera. Actually, if anything, the first movie gives me a lot more of like a Phantom of the Opera kind of vibe, just the way that the Candyman, besides having that like, I think he does have like a bit of a cloak or something in this movie. It's like the way he moves his jacket reminds me of a cloak, or I swear in that scene it felt like he was wearing one, the way his like coat moves around or something. But yeah, the way he interacts with Helen in the first movie kind of reminds me of that. It's like that seductive, mysterious kind of vibe of this like person you don't really know but has like power over you. I couldn't like think of the way to describe it when I was originally talking about that movie, and then this scene in this movie kind of just like made that click. But yeah, he's there being like kind of menacing and stuff, and she's scared. And it is kind of funny though, because she freaks out, and I want to specifically talk about that. And then he is suddenly in the next room and kills her husband. I like that he did not break eye contact with Annie at that part at all. He doesn't even like blink or anything, so it makes it kind of scary. The way Annie cries, okay, I usually don't want to make fun of like people's acting because it feels kind of mean, but I kind of want to here. I'm sorry. The way she cries is just so funny to me. She makes these weird little like breathing noises. I don't know if it's supposed to be like she's hyperventilating because she's scared, probably. But she like is like panting basically like a dog. It's like the noises she makes when she's like heavily breathing, but also her expression with her eyes just makes me think of like chihuahuas for some reason. I couldn't take it seriously because it's like she's supposed to be scared and he's not really like doing anything. He's kind of just talking at her. Oh no, that's the other thing that reminded me of Phantom of the Opera. I was trying to remember what else it was. Yeah, I mentioned that his voice, the Candyman's, is like kind of seductive and alluring and stuff. It was a thing where like whenever he says, mostly with Helen, like when he says the main character's name, it's like the way he sort of says it kind of also reminds me of the Phantom of the Opera, but Tony Todd, I feel like that's a bit of a tongue twister, kind of just has one of those like very slow, kind of calm sounding voices in general, but I feel like it fits with like the character and stuff, where he's not specifically like trying to scare them, but it kind of comes off that way a bit. But yeah, her freaking out just made the scene like funny to me. I couldn't take it seriously. She just doesn't. And there's like other scenes in this movie too where she's supposed to be scared or freaked. And I'm not saying like all the time her acting is bad or anything. Like at the end when she learns his backstory and he's saying of like, you need to die, and she's like, no, you need to die, and she smashes this like magic mirror thing. That part was okay, for example. That was like fine. But it's just specifically this one scene where she gets like scared that I couldn't take it seriously at all, because it just felt kind of bad. And then the blood and like gore and stuff is also interesting, where there's somehow like more but also less, where it's like you don't have the like the bleeding cut up just laying on the floor covered in blood bodies of the original, which I do kind of miss, because those hit pretty hard. But then you get stuff of like people being directly stabbed like through the back of their body to the front with the Candyman's hook, and just like seeing people get killed on screen. Also the bees are disappointing here. There's like 2 bee scenes. One of them is a guy who gets attacked I need to talk about the guy getting attacked by bees. That was actually pretty funny. But that happened. A guy is attacked by the bees. It's also a cat that gets attacked by the bees, but you don't see it, but you see the cat's corpse, and that actually just made me more sad than anything. But here Annie, she like claws at the Candyman's face. It was kind of confusing because his flesh opens so like easily, like there's immediately a hole in his face. So I don't know if it's because he's basically like a walking corpse, or if it's like she didn't like scratch him that hard. It was literally just with her hand, but it had the same effect of if she like slashed him open with like a knife. And then bees come out of his cheek, and the bees didn't feel scary this time with him. It was kind of disappointing. I think nothing hits harder. I mean, on one hand, I did look it up, by the way. The bees were real. Apparently the actor had a clause in his contract of like getting paid a certain amount for being stung by the bees, which I thought was pretty smart. So on one hand, I'm like, okay, I'm glad they don't have that scene in this because of the bees with the mouse thing, because I don't want people getting hurt by bees like that. That's kind of scary. But also nothing just hits harder to me than that scene of the bees coming out of his mouth. The bees are coming out of him still here, like they're coming out of his cheek, but like it doesn't look as like scary or anything. I don't feel like threatened or anything. Though there is a part where he stares at the camera. I think he's sort of staring at Annie, but kind of off from like the side, and the bees are covering half his face, and I feel like it should be goofy, but like just the way he's staring, it kind of comes off as like a bit cool, honestly. And he has the ability to heal too, which I'm assuming that like they don't mention about the first movie of like, oh yeah, he was like literally burned alive there, or I guess burned alive. I don't know, he screamed pretty hard when that happened in the first one, so I assumed he was burned alive or something. But I guess because he has the ability to heal here, I'm assuming that's how he survived. I don't know, because this takes place like a couple of years later, and he is pretty much unaffected, except that his bones look kind of weird. That's kind of about it. Like his face looks exactly the same and everything. It's as if he didn't die in the first one, basically, but like the whole thing with Helen did happen, and she did die, and she did get blamed for those deaths, so I don't know. Also, the blood in this movie is weird, where sometimes it looks real and sometimes it doesn't. Like, what also makes that scene comical of like Annie's first interaction with the Candyman is that there was a point where I paused to take notes, and I swear the blood that's on her literally just looked like red paint. Which feels kind of funny because like I get red paint in me sometimes, and like before it dries, it it does kind of look like blood a bit, but but here it just looks like red paint. It looks so bad. But then there's other times where like someone is killed, like when her husband is killed by the Candyman and there's blood coming out of him, or like the mother, she ends up with this stain that grows on her white like sweater or something of the, like the blood. That looks fine, that looks okay. Or like anytime, and it's the one thing that makes me always feel kind of icky, is when they show like a close-up of the Candyman's hook and you see like the stump, which it sort of doesn't really look like a stump. It just looks like something kind of injured to me, but it's still kind of like gory looking, and like with the blood inside, that always makes me feel like I cringe a little. It still kind of freaks me out, but yeah, less scared of the bees this time. There's a line the Candyman says, I think it's swallow your horror and let it nourish you. I thought that was actually kind of a cool line, because he says like cryptic shit like that to Annie throughout the movie. I do like the thing where, you know, people summon him through the mirrors, and usually he just, you know, he shows up in person. He never, it's not like the Ring where he can walk through the mirror and like kill you or anything. Oh, I'm still debating, by the way, off topic, of if I want to watch The Ring or not. I feel like I'm going to get nightmares, unless if you guys say it's not actually too scary. I don't know. There's some horror movies and stuff I refuse to watch though. Like I will never in my life choose to watch The Exorcist, for example. Both my parents have said that's like way too scary, so I'm not, but also I'm not interested in it. It looks too scary for me. But yeah, apparently the Candyman can show up in reflections. Like there's a part where Annie is looking, she's just looking at a door. She's outside and it's like a glass door, and the Candyman is there. And it does kind of look like he's in the reflection a little bit, but also could look like he's like just in the house or something. And he's just talking to her. That was kind of cool. And I do think it's interesting that the people in this, because there's like this pastor character, yeah, I think that's what it's called, like the person who's in charge of the church, yeah, who it's described, because there's like a subplot thing where the local pastor, his son is missing and stuff, and you later find out he's hiding out at Annie's old house this whole time because he wants to like meet the Candyman, and then he doesn't have anything else to do with the movie after that. It's just kind of to wrap up that one plot point, but he's missing, and it's presumed to be believed that it's because Annie said the name 5 times and nothing happened, but like the child was there, so they think there's a connection to that. Anyway, the pastor character is more important, where he describes the Candyman almost as like a false god in a sense, because throughout the movie I'm like, people believe in him, or most of them do, and they know he's scary and stuff, or even the non-believers, you know, had to have heard of the rumors, but everyone like insists it's a myth or whatever, and I'm like, you know, this guy is killing people, whether they believe it's the Candyman or not, people are dying. Why are you bothering to summon him and even if you don't believe he's real, why are you taking the chance to summon him? And like, you can potentially die if he turns out to be real, you know, but he's described kind of like a false god, or at least it's the pastor's theory, and he's summoned on purpose because of that, and that's why it's by either like the non-believers or desperate people. And I didn't really think of him that way until that was mentioned, but now I'm just kind of like, okay, I feel like that does make sense. But I mean, there is kind of that theme in the first one as well, with like the housing district and stuff, and the people being sort of desperate there, and the stuff related with that, with the Candyman. I feel like that also fits. That's the weird thing. It's like, I didn't like this movie, but there's just something about it that made me kind of just understand the original more. So I guess maybe it was good that I watched this. Oh yeah, there's a part where Annie, we're now at like the second half of the movie at this point. She goes to talk to this guy who kind of knows these things about the Candyman, because there's this whole thing where like her dad is trying to break the family curse or whatever that's related to the Candyman, who went to talk to this guy, and the guy is the one that gives Annie not the entire backstory of the Candyman. Like, she doesn't see the flashback or anything, but she learns about Carolyn and the baby and stuff. I don't know if they were married. I was almost going to call her his wife, but I don't think they were. I literally called him in my notes the sus guy. He gets killed. The way he gets killed is funny to me more than anything. Okay, so he's in his store with Annie, and he's looking down at the sheet, and it's kind of like with ghosts and stuff where there's like a round thing under the sheet that could be like a person, except that it's too close to the ground. He's looking down at this thing, so that feels kind of weird. Anyway, the sheets, you know, it's already sus. It has bees on it, you know, just it's slightly covered in bees. Little weird. Okay. It's the Candyman. The guy, and you know, the Candyman's like pretty tall and stuff, or at least I'm assuming so based on how this movie is. You know, he's usually like a lot taller than other people, but the sheet is like close to the ground for some reason. Like a toddler maybe, or like a small child could like fit under there if you were gonna have like a whole person underneath, but not like a grown-ass man. Anyway, the guy lifts the sheet, and it's the Candyman, and he like pops up there or whatever. It kind of almost reminds me, or I don't remember if I'm remembering this correctly, of like the clown, It, or whatever, how it could just like pop up through the floor, and it's just it's there now. It is like, is that how the Candyman's supposed to work? I don't know. Man. Sorry, I feel like this is the most like, not emotional, but like into it I've gotten for a review lately, and it's half like frustration and half just disappointment with this movie, of like the potential it had, but also the fact that it's kind of dumb. That I'm sort of, I didn't want to make this review originally. I was literally going to move on to watching Final Destination, because I also found that on like HBO or Peacock or wherever. I'm like watching all these movies in like 3 different streaming services. Oh, that's another thing. I hate it when, and it's probably a rights thing, like copyright, whatever, of like movies of the same series being on different streaming services. Like, why was just this one on like a different streaming service than the first and the third one? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, oh fuck, I forgot what I was saying. Okay, the guy, right, the guy. So he pulls the sheet. It's Candyman like pops up, or what, he doesn't like pop up through the floor, or I don't know, because the way the camera's positioned, you just see the top of his body, and he like stands more up or whatever. And he doesn't kill this guy with the hook, by the way. This is like the one person he's not killed with the hook. And he opens his jacket, and it's the bees. The bees are there. It's not as cool as with the original, though. I mean, then with that one, I mean, you didn't know what he looked like underneath, and you see the rib cage, and it's like, whoa. That's the other thing too I'm confused about. Which is what the only evidence I feel like assures that, like, okay, he was burned in the first one, because his rib cage in the first movie, I remember it was like, it didn't look like a corpse or anything. The bones, you know, they looked fine, I guess. But in this one, they're all like, they're not white anymore. They're like pink, and they don't really look like bone. They look kind of more fleshy. And I thought, well, I don't know what burned bones look like. Let me just state that. But the effect of the ribcage does look worse here. And the bees are there, and they come out of his body, and they kill the guy. He gets stung by the bees, and it's weird because they go in his eye, they go in his mouth a little bit, which is there's just something about bees going into people's mouths that like grosses me out. And they get over like this one specific eye, and I think they get on his body too, but then he pops out as like a mannequin, that's covered in bee stings, but it's only on his head and not anywhere else in his body, and he pops out through a window, and that's how they find the guy's corpse. But like, he didn't say Candyman like 5 times. I mean, he was talking about Candyman, he said the name, but he didn't say the name 5 times or whatever. I don't even think there's a mirror in that room. He was just talking to Annie about the backstory, and the Candyman just is there under the sheet and kills the guy, and I think Annie runs away. That's it. He didn't even talk to her. Like, what was the point of this kill? Anyway, so that happens, and then Annie turns out to be pregnant, which I feel like comes out of nowhere. I don't really understand why it was necessary, the plot. And I do believe that's like probably the only reason that she, you know, was able to survive this movie. Not that she's like spared for being pregnant. She does save herself. She destroys the smear, and it supposedly kills the Candyman, and then she's like fine, but I feel like she didn't have to like die, you know, because she was pregnant and stuff. So it's probably supposed to make her a little more sympathetic. But yeah, she turns out to be pregnant, and what's funny to me is she didn't know she was I mean, okay, I know you have to take a pregnancy test. The Candyman, for some reason, knows that she's pregnant. It's weird. Like, he sees her and he's like, oh, you're with child, it's a girl. I'm like, how do you even know that, dude? So that's a thing. She does end up giving birth to the baby, and that has to do with like the ending scene, but from between the point where she finds out where she's pregnant and then after the Candyman's like dead or whatever, and it's like a few years later because the kid's like 3, 5, whatever, her being pregnant has like nothing else to do with the plot, or like one line, but that's about it. I feel like it's just kind of there. I don't know. Anyway, there's a part where she's running through the crowd because it's like officially Mardi Gras now, and everyone's like dressed up and stuff, which I wish we could have seen more of the costumes. They look cool. It looks like it's a fun event. And the Candyman is just walking towards her. He doesn't look like he wants to kill her or anything. He's just, you know how in a lot of these like movies and stuff, like horror movies, it's like the killer looks very like angry, or they're like running towards the victim. No, he's just walking towards her, and she's like freaked out and running around in the crowd, and it makes it kind of funny, if anything, of like, you know, from everyone else's perspective, it's like, why does she seem so freaked out? And no one recognizes him either. I mean, I don't know if they can see his hook hand. He just seems like a normal person in the crowd or whatever. Oh, and then there's something stupid where the police not only think that Annie's brother is like covering up for her supposedly somehow killing all these people, but also they think she killed the guy that was killed by the bee stings. Like, how do they just think this woman can like summon bees? They like the other stuff, the other murders, I'm like, okay, that could be done by a person, you know, with the hook or whatever, but how do you control bees to kill someone? It just sounds so stupid. And then there's a guy that gets killed at the police station, and it's in like a really dumb way. Again, I feel like it's just another kill to be added to like pad the runtime of this movie, or like to have more kills, where this guy who's holding on to Annie's brother by the arm summons the Candyman, and he's immediately just there and kills the guy, and then the brother gets shot, and that's it for that, and it doesn't have anything to do with the plot. Then we get some plot stuff, which I already mentioned about the Candyman's daughter. Oh yeah, he has a name. I forgot about that. I mentioned that earlier. I had that in my notes and I completely forgot to mention it. Yeah, his character's name is Daniel. Because they talk about him. You get his full backstory here. Annie ends up finding his grave at one point. That's pretty much about it. But yeah, his daughter Isabel being, you know, Annie's like ancestor and stuff, but I already mentioned about that. And then Annie has this confrontation with her mom. I feel like that was also one of the only other good scenes where the mom is like trying to destroy the evidence because she doesn't want it known that like her family is related to the Candyman, and Annie gets like pissed about it and stuff. That is one of the only things I did like with her character, that she's upset with she's like rightfully upset about the mom, of like, why are you trying to deny it, he's like our family and stuff. And then when she has her kid at the end, she's showing this photo book where she talks about to her daughter, and she's talking about Isabel, and she has a photo of the Candyman while he's still alive and stuff. She doesn't tell the daughter who it is. She just says, oh, when you're older, I'll like tell you about him or something. I'm assuming it's probably just to not have him be summoned, because they have this little thing at the end where the daughter has this like baby mobile thing. I don't remember what it's called, the thing you hang for babies, and it's reflective because of course it is. And she starts saying the name, and the mom comes in, Annie, and like covers her mouth before she says it one last time, and then it goes to the credits. So you're not given the confirmation of like, is the Candyman gonna show up and like kill this child? Is he still alive or whatever? There's a third one, so that's the thing. I've heard the sequels get kind of worse, and it's always kind of a bummer when there's a sequel where, you know, like, oh, okay, they supposedly killed this person, but not really, or whatever, and it's just like, what? Especially because they do make it seem like, you know, if they kill him, he's gone, or whatever, because he has this whole backstory where his soul gets trapped in a mirror, and Annie destroys the mirror, and it's like the one time the Candyman seems like kind of afraid of something, and there's this really stupid effect with the mirror. It's this exploding mirror effect where the Candyman's part of his body falls off, and it leaves behind this like flesh effect that looks like it's off an N64, and then his body parts start exploding, and they explode into shattered parts of a mirror, and it is like one of the worst I was going to say it's one of the worst effects I've ever seen, and then I remember the Scorpion King from the Mummy movies exists, and then I also remember that all the stuff in Shark Boy and Lava Girl, it's up there, I'll say that. So yeah, they make it seem like he's gone, you know, his soul has been removed from the world, but then, you know, there's a third movie, so not really. Okay, let me go back to my notes. But yeah, the scene with confronting the mom is good, where Annie's upset, the mom is upset. The mom does get her just desserts though, which is great, where she and they don't even say Candyman anymore. The mom says something of like, the Candyman doesn't exist. She like screams it at Annie, and then he's there. He doesn't even pop up through a door or a mirror or anything. He actually, the little shot of it is kind of cool, where Annie and the mom, they look down at her shirt, and then the next shot is the hook on her and like a hand on the mom's shoulder. Like, he probably got kind of pissed in a sense, even though it's not visible in his voice or his words, of hearing that, of like the mom disbelieves his existence so hard, and the fact that she's a relative, so she knows that he freaking exists, that he immediately showed up and was already just there to kill her, like just already holding on to her. And then, you know, she gets stabbed, and he says, he's not even pissed either. He just says, oh, my child, you doubted me, your own flesh and blood. And there's more to that line, but that's basically it. And then she gets stabbed, and the blood expands from like her sweater or whatever, and that's it, and she dies. But then she ends up pressing this button. It was kind of confusing. I'm assuming it was just to like, you know, alert that there was danger, so that it would probably force the Candyman to leave. That's what I'm assuming her logic was, but instead it gives the effect of her daughter, putting her daughter in danger on purpose, because she hits this alarm button, the police start showing up, and Annie runs away, you know, and the mom's dead body is there. Also, the part where the mom dies is also kind of funny to me, where the actress the character apologizes to Annie, and then her head, you know when people die in a movie, it's kind of slow, and their head kind of flops a little. Sometimes they die with their eyes open. The mom's head, I swear, it's like she looks at Annie and says something, and the head turns like a little too fast, and she doesn't blink again, and that's it, and she's in like the death stare or whatever, the pose. But it happened in like such an unnatural way. It just but yeah, the mom getting killed by the Candyman is one of the only good like kills in this movie. Oh yeah, any time he appears, and I think it happens a little bit in the first one, I don't 100% remember, there's like this choir. It doesn't sound like an actual choir though. It reminds me of like one of the pianos I used to have, where like the electric ones where you can like make it sound like any instrument. And there's this one setting where it would be like a choir, but you know, you're like playing it with the notes. It sounded like one of those types of choirs. I don't know what the word for that is exactly, but it happens whenever the Candyman appears in this movie, especially this scene with the mom and stuff, and that's a good choice. It makes him come off as like way more menacing. It kind of goes along with that sort of like false god thing that I mentioned, that like vibe, and then he just disappears off screen. That was kind of goofy. The one thing that does kind of bother me though is like that scene, there's like this flashing light, and it kind of actually, normally I'm not affected by like really rapid flashing lights. I don't remember the word for that right now, but it did kind of hurt my eyes a little bit, so just a heads up that is a thing in this movie as well. I should have given that as a warning at the beginning too, but it was later on in my notes. But yeah, I also feel like there's not really any tension in this movie. Like with the original, I felt there was tension. I even brought it up of like, oh, I'm worried about that baby. You know, I was always thinking about it, and they kept showing us what was going on with the baby, and you think, yeah, he could get murdered at any time. You better hurry, Helen. But with this one, there isn't really anything like that. There's not really any tension in these families getting murdered and stuff, you know. And she eventually finds out his backstory, and that's kind of about it. Like, she eventually finds his mirror. That is the climax of the movie. She finds the mirror and she destroys it and stuff. I feel like if she had known about the mirror maybe from the beginning, or it was like hinted at it of like, oh, his soul is supposedly in the mirror, you need to destroy it to make the Candyman, it could go away. It could have even been like a little vague. I feel like that could have given some stakes of almost making it like a MacGuffin a little bit. Normally I don't like that kind of thing, but I feel like this movie needed something like that to make it more tense. Of maybe she has to like track down or find this mirror or whatever, or just give some kind of more of a sense of urgency with this, just a little bit, or not really like urgency, but just some kind of stakes in this. I didn't feel like there was any, and it doesn't help that the beginning of this movie is so freaking slow. Like, Annie's family's killed throughout the movie. I didn't care about them. I didn't really care about Annie. I did like the kid though, that she ends up finding. He draws illustrations of the Candyman throughout the movie. There's even a drawing of Annie as well, and that sort of has to do with stuff with the plot. You know how in like horror movies there's like usually a character that like their drawings are either of like the villain, or they're like plot relevant, or they're like psychic dreams or some shit. There's like a little bit of that in this movie. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And when she right before she destroys the mirror, there's like a flood in the building that they're in, And the Candyman, I was surprised was even affected by that. You know, this guy basically has the ability to teleport and whatever. And I mean, he's like kind of treated like a corpse, but he's also like a ghost or some. It's still confusing for me of like the way it works, where like he, you know, he has died. They do find his grave. He did die originally in like the flashback and stuff. Oh yeah, one more thing with the flashback that kind of did slightly ruin it for me, because it is like a fine acted scene, and it's depressing. You know, these people, they cover him in honey, they summon the bees, you literally see them cut off his arm or his hand and stuff, and he looks so scared and everything. Like he tells Annie of like, oh, you have to see what they did to me, you know, and why I became like this and whatever. Well, the one thing that ruins it is that, and other than that, it's a good scene. It's the effect for the bees. Like they cover him in the honey, and the bees, the next shot it's just this black swarm. It looks weird, and the entire swarm does not approach. It's just like a couple of the bees, and they go to him and they cover him like a little bit, and that's it. And then the bees go back to that swarm, and the swarm is gone, but it's animated like so terribly. It's not like the worst effect in this movie. The exploding mirror definitely takes the cake on that, but it just kind of ruined that scene for me a bit. That's the thing. Like the original, I mean, I think it did have some CGI stuff or whatever, but not anything that like ruined it for me. I actually can't even remember. You know, I mean, that one had like the real bees and everything. I don't know how you top that. But this one, there's like more like CGI stuff, and it just, I get this is a movie from the 90s. This is from like 1995. 1995, yeah. Actually, yeah, I can say up till like early 2000s, there's like definitely things that have bad CGI. For some reason, like, when I think about that, actually slightly off topic, a lot of movies specifically from 2002 I noticed have like really, really fucking shitty CGI. And then like a little whiles later into the 2000s, it starts getting a bit better. Not for like every movie it ends up being amazing. But yeah, no, this is a movie from the 90s, so I should remember. I almost want to like be like, bro, but yeah, no, why is it in this one specifically that it's so bad? I feel like it wasn't needed. The exploding mirror thing, they could have just done that a different way, of like his body exploding or something. There's also this one part where you see his image in a mirror, and it also looked bad. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing. Oh, something else. I do like this poster. I think I actually do like this poster a little bit better than the other one. Actually, hold on, let me pull that one up really quick. I still have that image on my computer. 1 second for the thumbnail. Yeah, because the original one, it's kind of more mysterious. You know how like when they originally make a movie and it's kind of more a little ambiguous or whatever, and then for the sequels, you know what the Candyman looks like and stuff, so they're able to show his face now. Like the original one, I hate the bee on that poster. It looks kind of weird, but I do like the thing with the eye and the you know, because eyes are like the windows in the soul, like mirrors or whatever. But you have his silhouette with the hook, and that part of it looks cool. I don't know why the eye's red though, but then this one, I do kind of like it a little better. Like the background, I just noticed, is the bee combs. I don't really like the like reflection thing of the Candyman. I feel like it wasn't really like needed. I mean, it is needed because he needs to be there, so you know it's like Candyman and stuff, but I feel like it could have been like a little smaller, more like transparent or something. The bees do look kind of weird. I really like that photo of Annie. Just the way it's shot, it like with the shadows on her face and her makeup, especially with that red lipstick and everything, it reminds me of like old Hollywood like photos and stuff. It's kind of cool. It makes her like way more glamorous than how she actually is in the movie though. She never wears like red lipstick like that or anything. Like here it makes her look more I don't know, it comes off as more like sexual, but her character's not. But it is a cool poster. I do also really like that subtitle of Farewell to Flesh. That sounds so badass that it almost feels like it's wasted on this movie. Because the other ones have subtitles too. Because this one's called Farewell to Flesh. The first one, it didn't have a subtitle. The third one is called Day of the Dead. Okay, that's actually kind of lame. That sounds generic. And then the 2021 one is just... Oh shit, I just dropped my phone. That scared me for a minute. It almost fell towards the the legs of this chair. I thought it was gonna like crash in there or something. Yeah, Day of the Dead sounds super generic. But yeah, Farewell to the Flesh sounds really badass. And it's the line, to be fair, said in this movie. It's one of the Candyman's lines, I think. Or wait, no, it's not. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. It's I think it's one of the lines from the radio announcer or something. He said something about like a farewell to the flesh or whatever. I don't remember the context, but it's a cool line. A lot of the Candyman's lines are pretty cool though. That does feel like something he would say, if like a farewell to the flesh or whatever. There's a lot of like kind of cryptic and sinister sort of lines, but that's the thing that I find him so interesting as a character, and that's like the sole reason I watched this movie, because I know that like sequels can be bad. I expected this to be bad. But besides the fact that why do I keep remembering his name's Tony? It's Tony Todd. Why do I keep forgetting his last name's Todd? Besides the fact that I think he does a great job as this character, I just find the character interesting and stuff. We're like with this movie where he's a guy with a hook and whatever, and he could easily be set up as like a slasher, as they show in this movie. But it's just his whole vibe is so interesting to me. Like when I think of like slashers and like other not that I have experience with the genre, I've already figured out I don't like it because of Friday the 13th. Or I think of like other killers or like whatever, I think of something like a bit more sinister, like they're trying to kill people on like they have like a grand reason for it or whatever, or like they look scary. He doesn't look scary to me, and I actually really like that. I was thinking about that when I watched the first one. I almost felt disappointed because I thought I was supposed to see him as like, he's like a serial killer person or whatever that's like killing these people, but I like that he's not. I mean, he does have the hook for the hand, and like when he opens the coat with the bees in there, that is kind of scary and stuff. Like the things with the bees are scary, and like the fact that he kind of looks like a rotting corpse is also scary. But like the fact that the fact that you can see his face, he doesn't wear like a mask or anything or whatever. He doesn't look like a corpse or anything. His head looks completely normal and everything, which I think also helps too. Like he doesn't really like, is emote the right word? Like he never really like gets angry or anything. Even with like killing these people, he always talks in that very calm voice, even if it's someone he's about to kill. Like I expected him to get angry at the mom for like Henny's mom for like denying his existence and lying about his connection to the family. He's so calm about it, or whatever, of just being like, hey, I'm your own flesh and blood and you're denying me or whatever, and then he kills her and that's it, but it's always said in like the calmest way possible and stuff. Or even if he's saying these kind of dark lines to the protagonist about like, we're gonna be joined together in deaths and stuff and all these other things, it comes off as normal. There is like that seductive like just vibe he has with both the main character, but it's more so with Helen. I think that's why I just find it more interesting, his dynamic with Helen in the first movie and stuff, where, you know, she doesn't believe in him, and he gets kind of more like flirty with her and stuff, but it does come off in like kind of a scary-ish kind of like Phantom of the Opera sort of way of like it's a bit flirty, but like he still can absolutely kill the main character at any time. That just makes it kind of interesting. Sorry, I'm like a little tired at this point. Sometimes I reach these points where I'm like an hour into these reviews and it's like I'm trying to make my point, but the words are just not coming into my brain at the moment. I think you get what I'm trying to say. I just find him as like a really interesting character, which is why I was hoping to continue with the series, and now I'm just like, no, the others aren't good. But you know, at least getting his backstory in this was sort of interesting. I didn't think he needed one. I felt enough context was provided in the original, but you know what? It was fine. New Orleans, like I said, could have been a really cool setting. I feel like they should have tried harder with it. I didn't care about Annie or her family. I thought she was a boring protagonist. I thought it could have been cool if it was like one of the, like, what if like the pastor or his son or something was the main character instead? Could have been more interesting, especially because the pastor's son, I don't remember what his name is, he was saying like to Annie of like, oh, I've been seeing the Candyman in my dreams or whatever, and he does all these drawings and stuff. I feel like that could have been interesting. I mean, maybe that could be the reason why I watched the new one. Like, why are we getting the perspective of like all these random white girls and stuff? Because Anthony, the baby from the original movie, does end up being the main character, I think, in the new one, and that could be kind of interesting. I did watch the trailer for it though. I didn't really feel interested. I feel like it, from what it looked like, it kind of makes the story more like political and stuff, and I mean, I guess that's fine, but I mean, like the political stuff definitely is there, like the racial things are definitely there with like the original and this one too. Of course it has to do with like his backstory and everything, but also like the people in the housing district and stuff in the original, like it's there, I get it, but I don't know, it felt like a little too like kind of in your face. I mean, I did just watch the trailer with the new one too, so I don't know, I can't judge it because I haven't seen it. But anyway, my point is, I slightly regret watching this, but I don't completely regret it. It was okay, not as bad as I thought it would be, but it did kind of force me to think back to the original, kind of rejudge. I mean, not that I needed to rejudge it. I didn't like think it was bad or anything. I enjoyed the original, but it felt more like I expected it to be different. I'm glad it wasn't like a slasher movie or anything. I'm glad that it was better. I think I just felt kind of confused by it when I think I just needed to like process it before talking about it. Sometimes I make that mistake where I talk about something immediately after I finish, but like before I really think about it, and that's why these videos help. And I think by making this one and seeing all the wrong things they could have done with the character and stuff, of just making it kind of the story more like generic or whatever, or having like a boring main character, or turning the Candyman into like a slasher character and not having that like mysterious vibe, and just seeing all the ways it could have gone wrong, made me realize all the things the original did right. That's what I was trying to say the whole time. Sorry, sometimes it just takes me a while to get my words out. But yeah, this one was whatever. The original was really good. I feel like I can say that now, of like that's the only one I needed. I will probably watch it again. I don't know if it would be one of those I'd watch every year. Maybe. Yeah. You know what? I could see myself doing that, because like now that I watched this and I was like, oh, this was kind of bad, it makes me want to watch the original again. I'm not even kidding. But yeah, I'll mentally add that to the list too, of like that one, Crow, Rocky Horror, Phantom of the Opera. I still haven't actually typed that out yet. But yeah, I think I'm done with Candyman. I'm good. I don't need to watch the others. this was already bad enough, and I know the third one gets worse. I have other things to move on. I'll mention about that real quick. Oh yeah, I watched Phantom Peak this yesterday or this morning. I forgot to make a review of that. I don't think I will, but I will say that is one of my favorite October movies, like vibe-wise and everything. It's so good. Yeah, I mentioned Final Destination. I'm gonna watch that for sure. I'm a little nervous because that's the one where like people, it's literally about dying. So where teens die in like gruesome ways or something. We'll see if my stomach can handle it, but I've heard that's another one that's well known, but it also has like a billion, not a billion, it has like 5 or 6 movies or something. Okay, what else? I actually started making a list of like different streaming service stuff. So I want to watch those, or at least just the first one. I want to watch the original Frankenstein and Dracula, and then from there, connected to those, I might also watch Young Frankenstein. I might actually watch that tomorrow, before watching original Frankenstein. Dracula, that might lead me to the old Nosferatu as well if I find it. I want to rewatch Scream. You might get a review of that from me. Maybe Psycho. Psycho's actually one of my favorite movies, honestly. There's one of those bad free copyright whatever public domain, the Mickey Mouse one. I might watch it and see how bad it is. I found Nightmare on Elm Street. I was supposed to watch that with the buddies, but I did not because of some stuff going on at my house. I might watch that. I've always been curious about Freddy Krueger, and he shows up in people's dreams or whatever. I will watch some of the Chucky sequels as well. I was talking to my brother today. He said, he didn't tell me about the show. There's like a Chucky show. He says that Chucky's voiced by Mark Hamill. That's all I need. I'll start that show at some point after those sequels. So yeah, that's going to be some of the stuff I watch. Don't know if I'll do reviews of all of those, but you know, thought I'd mention it. So I still got a ways to go, and it's funny because like with posting these videos, October I think is almost over. For me though, it's halfway through the month, so I still got time. So you might be getting either a bunch of these reviews like spammed in multiple days, or they might go into November. I'm just gonna keep making these until I'm satisfied with watching all these movies. Okay, that's it for me with Candyman. Yeah, alright, bye bye.